matches to begin. A thousand banners waving in the sky. Here comes our Lazio, the eagle starts to fly.
Welcome everybody to a special episode of Lazio Lounge. The first time I think we record a podcast on Wednesday. So plenty of things to talk about. Obviously, transfer market will be probably our main focus. Again, with me, the Alasdair Mackenzie. Hello, Alasdair. How's it going?
Yeah, good. I didn't realise it was our first Wednesday show. That's a good bit of lunch trivia.
I think so. I'm not sure, but I believe it is.
Well, better make it a good one then. Although, unfortunately, it doesn't feel like we've really got an awful lot to celebrate since we last spoke.
No, not a lot of things to celebrate, but a lot of things to talk about. Before starting, remember you can subscribe to our podcasts on Patreon, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts from $2. With 10 after 3 months, you get a lovely Lazio mug. Plenty of things to talk about. I want to start by the quotes Lotito gave last week after one of the meetings of Serie A president, where he said that Lazio will have the stadium ready before Roma. Now, you know, I don't know if that was a joke, but I would love from Lotito to talk less, and when he talks, to make announcement and not challenge like this, because we know the situation didn't change. We know that Roma already had the approval. There have been some problems there, but Lazio still didn't present a plan. So why go out on public and say those things? You know, I don't understand it.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same thing. I mean, it's all very well making these statements in public, and clearly it is the kind of sentiment that fans want to hear, because I think all of us as Lazio fans love the idea of having our own stadium and, you know, a 21st century facility. But like you alluded to there's so many hoops you have to jump through, particularly in Italy, it has to be said, in order to actually get a programme like that off the ground and make it a reality. So for him to suggest Lazio are further ahead than Roma without actually bringing the plan forward, it seems a bit, it does come across as him making comments without too much to back it up, which is a shame. I mean, it is at least encouraging, I would say, to hear him talking about it again, to hear him mentioning the possibility of a stadium, because it is something that kind of goes in and out, really, of the Lazio news cycle. Sometimes it becomes quite a hot topic for a while and then it disappears. So it's been quite a long time since we've really had anything substantial occur with the stadium. So I suppose at least he's thinking about it.
Yes, but you know, why talking about this? I think one of the problems of Lotito is when he talks, he's able to always come out with bad quotes like this one. You know, it's good that he didn't talk that much in the last couple of years. Probably he understood that was his worst problem. But every time he does, now and then he always come out with these stupid things, you know. Present a project, go there, and then you make this type of announcement. So yeah, you know, I wanted to talk about this because I thought it was a bad thing to say at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think the focus has to be on strengthening the squad. That's obviously what everyone else is talking about at the moment. I think until it gets to a point where there is some news or some sort of breakthrough, it's not really worth getting yourself involved in what seems to be a fairly petty argument with your rivals. They've had their own problems with the stadium, but that's not to say the Lazio are further ahead. So, yeah, I think when it comes to Lotito, you're right to say that he's perhaps best advised to stay away from the press, because when he does open his mouth, it does tend to make headlines, and not often for very good reasons.
No, absolutely. And, we're going to see what happened. The only interesting point he made about the stadium was that probably it's easier to get the approval if you don't plan, like what's Roma trying to do, a shopping center around the stadium and all that big commercial area. So maybe Lotito understood that he has to do a smaller plan, more focus only on the stadium instead of all the area around. Maybe that's going to make it easier. But again, before present the plan, and then you come out and talk saying we're going to do the stadium before Roma. Anyway, as we were talking before recording, transfer market started, but it looks like it didn't start for Lazio, right? Because another week has passed and still no announcement of Lazio signing players. There have been two big move, but of player leaving Lazio, Alasdair. It's still something, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, we were discussing this shortly before coming on. I think it's obviously not nearly as exciting to see players moving out of the club, but actually, when you consider the players that Lazio still have on their books, it is just as vital, arguably, to get guys like Marchetti and Djordjevic out of the club this summer, given the wages that they'll be on still, and the fact that they certainly have no future in the squad. It's good to see those guys being given opportunities elsewhere, and I mean, particularly in the case of Marchetti, but in the case of both of them, I'd say it's nice to see them be given an alternative, because I don't think any player really deserves to be frozen out of the squad and have no future. So it's good to see those guys be given clubs. Frees up a bit more cash, hopefully, for Lazio, and even though it's movement in the other way than what we had hoped to see, it is something. Just the main frustration for me has really been that we've been linked with all sorts of players as usual, but the deals that seem to be kind of gaining a bit more momentum, the likes of Acerbi and Laxalt, and we're still not really seeing anything concrete yet. And meanwhile, a guy we'd talked about before, Cristante, has now signed for Roma as of today, and another guy we talked about just on Sunday, Romagnoli, has gone and signed a new contract in Milan. So it does go to show that speed is an important thing to keep in mind during the transfer market.
Yes, you said pretty much everything.
Sorry.
We we can close it here. Goodbye. Romagnoli was linked with Lazio. I think there have been any contact with the players and the club, but it was a situation that probably made the rumor spread. He's a Lazio fan. Milan is struggling, and so why not going? Lazio need a defender, so why not go and grab him? Unfortunately, he renewed his contract with AC Milan. That, in a certain way, is concerning, because looking what's happening now to Milan, AC Milan, renewing for other 4 years, if I'm not wrong, with AC Milan now, it's a big trust for the club. I would be a little bit concerned about that, but he could have maybe better option with Lazio. Obviously not the same salary. I think the salary AC Milan is offering would be out of reach for Lazio, but he could have been a good player. I'm more disappointed about Cristante because there were rumors that a month ago Lazio had a deal with, or at least find agreement with the player, and now today he's signing with Roma. So he would have been a good player, especially if Lazio's planning to sell Milinkovic-Savic. And as I already said in the last podcast, Roma is making a lot of signing. Some could be good, and it's good to see a club like that moving like that. So for the fan, obviously, but it's disappointing to see Lazio so freeze at the moment. Even though already Lazio lost a key player like De Vrij.
Well, that's it, and on top of that, it's not like it's a secret what Lazio need to do this market. That makes it more frustrating than anything, really. That is the fact that we've lost one of our star players in Stefan De Vrij on a free transfer, and it's been clear for 2 months now that's a position that needs filled. So you would hope that that's something that the club would be able to sort out fairly early on in order to not only plug the gap, but keep Inzaghi happy in terms of his preparation, and more importantly, perhaps keep the fans happy. And I think if you get a good signing through the door quite early on, it does relax everyone a little bit. And if that part of the squad was shown to be replaced, then that would be really positive. And you hear Lotito and Inzaghi both saying that De Vrij will be replaced with somebody even better. But it's quite hard to see at this stage how that's going to happen, because the longer we get into this market, the fewer opportunities there will be for getting guys who are perhaps out of contract, quality players in. And if it's not them, then it's going to have to be spending a lot of money. And Lazio do have money to spend in this transfer market, but I think the money that we do have to spend has to be spread throughout the squad in order to actually improve the overall quality and depth rather than on one defender. So I think that's the most frustrating thing for me really so far, is that it's quite obvious we need a centre-back, we need a Vice Immobile, and none of these clear gaping holes in the squad have been addressed yet.
No, and I was thinking about it yesterday, and I don't know if you and our followers agree. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if said that Lazio has 40 million euros of budget, but it could be even more. I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the summer Lazio spent only 25 millions, Unfortunately, this is what I'm thinking. I wouldn't be surprised to see Lotito spending just half of it or even less, saying these are the quality players we found and that's it.
Yeah. I suppose there's just, there's not really a precedent of Lazio having a market like this one in which we've succeeded, at least under Lotito. It's hard for fans to, it's fairly early doors, so I don't want to sound too downtrodden about the whole thing, but the fact is most of our transfer markets under Lotito have been fairly stringent and we've not spent a lot of money. So now that we've actually got the opportunity to splash that cash a bit more, we don't necessarily have the trust that they'll be able to do that in the way that we'd like. But I think one lesson we've learned, which seems pretty evident throughout this season, is that has to be done, and that more quality has to be added to this squad. And particularly if we are going to lose a number of key players. Say worst case scenario and Milinkovic-Savic goes and Felipe Anderson goes as well. You've lost 3 players there who have quite, on a lot of occasions this season, formed the core of the team in De Vrij, Milinkovic and Anderson. That's the spine of a team there. So worst case scenario, those guys go out, and if we've not moved in the market to get anyone in, that's going to be a problem, particularly because Inzaghi said quite clearly he wants this squad ready by the time they go to Alonso.
Yeah, and let's not forget there's the World Cup this summer, So, maybe Tare have already linked some of the players, but if they perform very well at the World Cup, then their prices will go up, and it would be harder for Lazio to sign them. So, that's another point to consider, especially knowing that Tare is very good to find those players that are very good but still not very known because they play in minor leagues. So I would hope that Lazio close deals earlier than later. Sorry, not only because of Alonso, but because the more the time goes by, the harder it's going to be for Lazio to sign this kind of player. By the way, we've been talking about Laxalt a lot. There are rumors. Alfredo Petullar, who's usually one of the few that has good contact with Lazio, said that there will be a meeting in the next days with the Genoa because Laxalt has been considered one of the priority for Lazio, and it looks like Lazio and Genoa should be able to find a deal to send Laxalt to Roma, and that Acerbi is the priority in the defense, and it should be a meeting even with Sassuolo in the next days for him, while Itsu could be the second option, but after signing Acerbi could be another signing maybe a little bit cheaper. So that looks to be the priority now at the moment for Lazio. As we said in the last podcast, I think Laxalt could be a very good move, a player who knows very well Serie A, who has been performing already at a certain level in Serie A, who probably now is ready for the step forward, to show that he has improved his level of football, is ready to play for a Champions League spot.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, we kind of discussed him before in the podcast on Sunday, so I won't go into too much depth. But yeah, I mean, it's true. He's exactly the kind of profile of player that I was hoping we'd go for this season. So it's just really a case now of getting the deal done, and it's one of these where from the multitude of reports that have gone around, this deal does seem a bit closer than the rest. So I'm really hoping that one goes through because I agree with you. I think it'd be an excellent addition.
Yes, again, it's forgive me if I said the typical Tare signing. Quality player probably that you won't spend too much to sign, that can have a big leap in the coming season. So it's a good signing. The thing is, if Lotito and Tare says that Acerbi it's a better player than De Vrij, then it would be a good signing. But to say it's a better player or the defense have improved with Acerbi, I wouldn't be that sure, honestly.
No, I think it'd be a decent signing, but it's definitely not improving the quality of defender, I wouldn't say. And also, you're bringing in someone older as well, which isn't always the worst thing with a centre back. Experience can say a lot for centre backs, but yeah, I think if you're going to talk about improving the quality over De Vrij, I don't think Acerbi's the man who's really doing that. That's not to say he wouldn't be a good signing, but I'd like to see him come in, like I said on Sunday, alongside somebody else as well. Yes,
he has experience of Serie A, which is really good. He has leadership that will help in the Lazio defense, but De Vrij has time to improve and become even a better defender. So it's not a bad signing. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't go out and say, yeah, Acerbi is much better. It's an upgrade compared to De Vrij. No, I don't think so. Maybe Ramos could be an upgrade, and Acerbi could help Ramos grow, but I wouldn't say that Acerbi is an upgrade of De Vrij, absolutely.
No, yeah, I agree with you there. I think that it is encouraging at least to see that the players we're being linked with throughout this window do seem to be predominantly based in Serie A, though. I think that's something that Inzaghi has told the Iglitare and Claudio Lotito quite clearly that he would like guys with Serie A experience preferably to come into his squad. And if you look at the names we're being linked with, they are generally Serie A players. And I think that is quite encouraging. I mean, obviously it can only be so encouraging given that we've not actually completed any of these moves yet. But it is, I would say, an improvement over taking gambles on guys we don't know too much about, or going the other way and bringing in nanny style players, guys with reputations but no real experience in the league. So yeah, although Acerbi isn't De Vrij Part 2, he is at least a guy who we know can do a good job in Serie A.
Yes, absolutely, and probably it's the player that is looking to take the step forward. Finally compete, have a team that competes for the top spots of the league, and maybe show that he has more than he has proved till now. So again, I would say it's a good signing. Not that he's an upgrade of De Vrij, not absolutely. And as you were saying, only at the moment there are rumors only about players linked with Serie A. Well, the thing is, Tare usually work alone. So if you don't have a contact with players abroad, it's very difficult to find out what he's doing outside Italy. I wouldn't be surprised if Lazio signed a couple of youngsters abroad. So, but I think Lazio need to sign quality players. We said it often that Leyva is the perfect example of the players Lazio need to sign. We're gonna see. Acerbi could be a sort of Leyva type of player. I'm not sure about that. Maybe in a certain level, but he hasn't got the international experience that Leyva had. So I'm not sure, but anyway, it would be a good signing, especially if Lazio sign Laxalt and Acerbi in this week. That would be a good sign for the fans as well, that showing that the club is moving, knowing what they have to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would definitely calm the nerves if we got in a couple of players of that level early on. I suppose the other main doubt is really, what's going on with Felipe Anderson is perhaps the main kind of question in terms of the outgoings at the moment. Whether or not he's got a future at the club, and it's a bit of a shame really to, it can be as damaging really to have that uncertainty at this stage as anything else. I mean, Milinkovic-Savic is slightly different matter because we more or less know now that what his price is in Lotito's eyes, and if someone's going to meet that price, he'll probably go. And I think we can all accept that, but that's because it would be a phenomenal amount of money. But with Anderson, it's a bit different. I think everyone's feelings about Anderson are a bit mixed. He's been brilliant at times, he's been terrible at times, and his attitude has come and gone a bit as well. But overall, he is a very talented player, and it would be a big loss for the club to see him go. So that would be a bit of a shame, especially if this drags on. I mean, I think the worst case scenario with this is really for him to continue to hold talks with the club about his future or a contract extension, for it to take a few weeks for him to decide against it, and for a club in England, or for example, to come in and take him away but a month later on, and then you have to replace him.
Well, it looks like tomorrow there's going to be this meeting with the Felipe Anderson agent at the club. And the thing is, rumors are saying that it's not only the player that want to leave, but even the club that would be happy to sell him. My impression is that Tare, Lotito, and probably Simone Inzaghi have realized that this is Felipe Anderson, a player that eventually can change the game, but it's going to be up and down. That in top matches he could not perform, etc. So maybe the player want another chance in another fresh start somewhere else, and the club is thinking, after 5 years we tried, it worked out, but not as we expected. if a big club come with the money, with the cash, then we're happy to leave him. His contract is expiring 2 years, so Lazio is still in a good position. There have been rumors that West Ham came and offered 35 million euros. Lazio is asking for 40. I think if Lazio is going to be able to sell it for 40, that's going to be a good deal. And yes, it's a quality player, but it's a player that this season didn't play that well. So I think he can be replaced, honestly.
He can be, but it's the question of trust, I suppose, is whether you trust the club to actually replace him with a player of similar quality. And it's hard to say. I mean, I do agree with the overall sentiment of this season. I think probably in a lot of people's minds, actually, not just inside the club and with Simone Inzaghi, but I think with a lot of fans as well. Perhaps this season was the one at which we've had a look at him and realised he's no longer this up and coming star, and perhaps this is his level, and this is the kind of player he's going to be, and we should stop waiting for him to explode in the way that he did a few seasons ago. So yeah, I think in terms of selling him, it probably is the right time to sell. As you mentioned, with 2 years left on a deal, that's prime time to really get a decent transfer fee, because if we leave it another season and his contract still hasn't been extended, and knowing how things go at Lazio, I wouldn't trust it to be, then you risk again being in a situation where you've got a player going into the last year of contract and running the risk of losing him for free. So I think it would be a shame to see him go, but it all for me really depends on the replacement, or on what kind of level of player the club would be expecting to bring in to replace him.
Yes, I mean, it makes sense. Let's not forget that I think Luis Alberto is the starter. So Felipe Anderson, I think he will struggle to get his spot back. So obviously, again, that will mean that Lazio will need to find a replacement for Felipe Anderson, who probably at the beginning wasn't a big need for the club. But if you get 40 million euros for Felipe Anderson, I think it's a nice deal. So let's see what happens. Again, I think if you want to compete for the Champions League, then probably Felipe Anderson showed you that he's not the player that carries the team on his shoulder and bring it to the Champions League. And when you think about a number 10, you're looking for that type of player. So again, maybe after 4 years, we realize that that's the type of Felipe Anderson. He's going to be amazing for 1 or 2 matches and then disappeared for other 4. So especially after the breakout season of Luis Alberto, I think it's the perfect moment to sell it. Again, you have to sell it at the right price, and we'll see if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, you say, and quite rightly, that whoever would come in would be behind Luis Alberto in this formation. But I mean, the thing is, Anderson still played a lot of games this season. Alberto's not going to be able to play every match. So whoever is the alternative to Alberto is going to be a busy guy. And it's not like, when we were discussing Andahar coming in as Strakosha's number 2. It's a completely different situation. I think actually having somebody as an alternative in that number 10 role is really important. And that was a rare, strength and depth for us this season, was that behind the striker position, that we had 2 players of such quality to be able to call on. So, yeah, I think it's one thing saying it's the right time to sell him and getting the right price for him, but I think it's another thing to consider his replacement as a number 2, because Anderson if we're honest, at the start of last season wasn't considered as a number two. He was considered as a first-team player, and quite rightly. So
Yeah,
I think we need to be looking to someone who's really going to be pushing Alberto, rather than somebody who's willing to stay in his shadow.
no, absolutely. I mean, that's obvious, especially considering a team that's going to play in the Europe League and the Coppa Italia. The Vice Luis Alberto, let's call it like that, it must be a player who is able to start for a good team. But I think how many times Felipe Anderson came in from the bench this season, and we were thinking, okay, he's going to change the match, and didn't do absolutely nothing or very little. So, I don't want to say that he's not a good player and things like that. I think he's good. I just think that maybe it's time to find different solution. Rami Algendi just tweeted, Verdi is going to Napoli, we won't buy Chiesa Simeone, Pedro Neto will be the replacement of Felipe Anderson. Well, could be, honestly, but I think Lazio is going to buy someone else, and maybe, who knows, maybe Neto is the new Luis Alberto, we don't know it, and he's very young and very considered in Portugal. Honestly, I hope Lazio is going to buy another player to replace Luis Alberto, and maybe Pedro Neto, who could be the surprise and start, getting more minutes, more time to play as the season go on. But I cannot believe that if Lazio sells Felipe Anderson, they won't buy any replacement.
No. Oh, God. I really hope not. I think particularly in the system that Inzaghi plays, it's such an important role that number 10 has got to actually link the midfield to the attack and support the striker. So, it's absolutely essential to make sure that we've got quality options in there. And Pedro Neto, who knows? Maybe the guy will turn out to be absolutely amazing and fulfill all the hype around him. But the truth is, we just have absolutely no idea at this stage. He's still a young kid, he's still a teenager, and he should be treated that way. And until he's given a chance in the first team where we can make our judgment, it's not right to really put any expectation on him to do anything. I think it's only right to expect that if Anderson ends up going, that somebody of a similar level comes in, and we don't look to what we've already got, because it's pretty clear that what we've already got isn't going to be good enough.
Yes, and Pedro Neto has all the summer training to show his talent and maybe surprise us and show that he's already ready to play for Lazio, and he's a great player. But if you want to compete for the Champions League spot, you have to find a replacement that has experience, who has certain level of talent, and that already have shown. So I hope Lazio is going to buy those type of players, and maybe Pedro Neto becomes the surprise, and instead he take the place of Luis Alberto. Who knows? But before that, I want to see Lazio signing this type of players, quality players. Do you think that with Anderson leaving, this is meaning that Milinkovic-Savic is going to stay another season?
Well, to be honest, I see the two things as completely separate, and I think they should be treated as separate, because Anderson's situation is so different. It's really a guy who is considering his future, and like you said, the club are also considering his value to the team, and the circumstances around his contract and everything else mean that this might be the right time to sell him. It might be a considered decision to do that. Whereas Milinkovic-Savic, I think if anybody at the club, it was up to them, he would be staying at the club. He was given a new contract last summer, so he's tied down in for a good length of time. There's no worries about that. It really just is a case of money, and if there's anyone out there in the market this summer who's going to be willing to stump up the sums that Lotito's asking for. And so far, we haven't really seen any signs of Milinkovic-Savic himself being unsettled or trying to get a move out of the club. So I think we can say that he does seem to be fairly happy. I mean, his agent has talked about how much interest there is in him. He hasn't said anything more than that, but I think with Milinkovic-Savic, for me, it just really comes down to the money and how serious this interest is.
Yes, I agree. I think it's really, Lotito has all the power because Milinkovic has a long contract still with Lazio. So if Lotito's not happy with the money, I think he's going to stay. But at the same time, if De Vrij already left, if you sell Felipe Anderson and Milinkovic-Savic, I mean, you're changing a lot of players in the squad. It's not going to be that easy. I don't know if Inzaghi would be happy about that, and if Tare would be able to find all this replacement. We're talking about key players. Again, Felipe Anderson is not a starter. I don't consider him a starter anymore at Lazio, but he's still a player who played a lot of matches. So Lazio still need to find a replacement for Felipe Anderson. If you consider Felipe Anderson and Milinkovic-Savic, then they are two important players. Let's not forget that Marco Parolo is not getting any younger. I think Lazio has to start thinking about someone who starts instead of Parolo next season. So, there are a lot of players to buy this summer for Tare like that.
Oh yeah, he's got plenty of work to do. And I think all of it really comes down to what you mentioned before, which is if this is a team that's hoping to push into the Champions League. And I think all that Lazio really need to do is look around them and look at our competitors in the league and what they're doing so far and what their ambitions are. And what Lazio need to be doing is not just keeping pace, but looking to actually go into the new season with a stronger squad than those teams around them. So there shouldn't be any inferiority complex anymore after the way that we played this season and how unlucky we were not to get in the top four. So I think it just comes down to that, is that you need to... There's plenty of different ways of showing ambition in football, and I think Simone Inzaghi and his players last season, they punched above their weight in terms of the depth of squad and how well they performed across all these competitions. So they've done their part, they've shown their ambition and their willingness to take this club to the next level, and now it really moves on to the boardroom and the upstairs part of the club to actually meet them and do the same thing.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree with that. And you have to also consider that AC Milan is pretty much stuck with this UEFA situation, so they are not making any movement at the moment. Inter, even though they qualified for the Champions League, they are still struggling. There have been quotes from Spalletti saying that Cancelo and Rafinha probably won't be staying at the club, so they're losing two key players. So really this summer could be fundamental for Lazio because they can make a big leap and pass Milan and Inter and fight for the third spot that will qualify them for the Champions League. Napoli is changing a lot because without Sarri and with Ancelotti, we don't know what's going to happen. So I think there's a big chance for Lazio.
I hope so, yeah. I do hope so. It's really hard to say at this stage. I mean, it's so early in the summer, really. Everyone does tend to get a bit ahead of themselves when the truth is the market's not even open yet. So I think you mentioned the World Cup earlier, actually, and I think that's an important thing to keep in mind because World Cup summers do tend to be do tend to lead to some interesting moves, to say the least. And it's worth remembering that although quite often World Cups are linked with or remembered for clubs paying too much for players who turn out to have overperformed at those tournaments, our last World Cup signing was Stefan de Vrij after the 2014 World Cup when he did so well with the Netherlands. So I suppose that's something encouraging to remember. I mean, obviously 4 years on we've now lost him, but 4 years ago that was probably one of Iglitare's biggest coups as a signing, considering the interest around de Vrij at the time. So it does go to show that he is capable of pulling off those kind of moves in a World Cup summer, and maybe he can do it again. Who knows?
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope so. Even though it's important to consider that the clubs that will have a lot of players competing in the World Cup, they will struggle at the beginning of the season because they will have extra holidays, so they will skip the training camp to know if they will be able to start playing at the beginning of the season. It's always a little bit special, the season after the World Cup, especially for those top teams that loses a lot of players. So it's gonna add a little bit more uncertainty, especially for the top levels of the leagues with the World Cup. And honestly, I hope Lazio close deals before the end of the World Cup, because otherwise this will mean that this player won't be available for Alonso, which is really important. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I mean we've only got two players at the World Cup, Cáceres and Milinkovic. So that is hopefully one positive, is that we're not going to have tired players, because it would have been a bit of a nightmare considering the season we've just had and the problems with tiredness and fatigue. That it's good that at least we've got our squad able to enjoy themselves and relax over the summer instead of having to take part in it.
Yes, absolutely. This is a very good thing, and it's positive to have so little players playing at the World Cup. Nando Hem on Spreaker wrote, "Our defense will all improve if we sign Acerbi with Glick or Izzo." Globally, maybe. What's your thought, Alasdair?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of goes back to my point earlier on, which is that I think Acerbi is a really solid player to bring in, and would be a good signing for Lazio. But in order to bring the overall level of the defence up, I'd like to see someone else come in alongside him. And yeah, I think Izzo and Glick are two guys who've been been connected to Lazio for the last few weeks. And yeah, I think both of them I'd be quite happy to see at the club. Both guys with Serie A experience. I mean, I suppose the problem with Glick is he's just picked up an injury. So, but on the other hand, if he's not, I'm not sure whether it's ruled him out of the World Cup or not. But if it has, then at least might avoid his price going up a bit, which is something. Lazio obviously have a relationship with Monaco, having done the Keita Balde deal last summer. So yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. I think for me, it would have to be something like that in order to feel really kind of content with how things have gone defensively. I would like to see, if it's going to be Acerbi, somebody alongside him of that kind of profile. Yeah.
Yes, you need signing two players like that would be probably an improvement for the defense. You add more good players that can play in defense. Probably, you would pick, I believe, Glick ahead of Wallace and Bastos. So you would already have probably more valid options in defense. So maybe they are not better players than the Vrij, but buying two players like that provide probably a better option to Inzaghi.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like we're drowning in options with defenders, you know. I mean,
No.
Wallace and Bastos, both of whom have had a lot of individual errors. We still don't really know what to expect from Luis Felipe next season, if he's going to live up to the early promise or not. Radu has been terrific, but is steadily getting a bit older. So yeah, it's not a position where we have a lot of depth. So it would be important to add a lot to that, and especially when you consider how many goals we conceded last season, it's definitely the weakest part of the team.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I consider the attack probably the weakest part, because if you take off Immobile, we don't have a lot of options there. And, the fact that after the rumors of Petagna, there have been any talking about strikers linked to Lazio. I don't know if this concerns me or, makes me happy that not bad strikers are linked to Lazio anymore.
Why would it concern you?
Well, as we said, I don't like Petagna as an option, but so I wasn't happy there. But at least we haven't been linked with other bad strikers, So maybe they're looking for other deals with with better players.
Yeah, I mean it's very that's the other critical position for us to actually fill this summer, isn't it? So we talked about Petagna quite a lot on Sunday. Neither of us are very convinced, but yeah, I mean it's the same. It all just comes back to the same point, which is really the sooner the better that we can get these deals done, and it's going to help Inzaghi a lot more as well to actually know his options, know how he's going to play his game. And I think as well that one thing we complained about towards the tail end of the season particularly was that Inzaghi wasn't really being flexible enough tactically, and I think in order for him to be able to do that next season, it's going to be really important for him to have that time over the summer to work with that squad and make sure that he's confident and that they're capable of doing it. Because once we get started, it'll be a game every 3 days pretty quickly, and he's not really going to have the chance to do that. So to coach the team in different systems. So Alonso really is important, not just in terms of physically preparing the team, but in terms of tactically preparing them for what's to come.
It's important tactically, but even to see new players or even youngster, because it's there where Inzaghi can give them time and space and test them and see if you can pick a gem or a hidden talent that you weren't able to see last season or in the past. So it's really important, and especially to test different solution, to try players in different position. Let's not forget that Alonso was fundamental, because we saw Luis Alberto playing in Biglia position, and I think that changed a lot of things for Luis Alberto. So it's important if Inzaghi has all the team ready for Alonso, because he can try different solution. So it would be important. It looks like there are going to be a lot of youngsters there. As we said, Palombi is coming back, but there could be other players, other Lazio Primavera players there. Minala looks like he wants to play in Serie A, so maybe he can have a chance with Lazio, considering the how many central midfielder Lazio will have next season.
Well, I want to play in Serie A as well. It doesn't give me any better chance.
Well, I think Minala has better chances than you.
Oh, come on. You're so mean.
I'm sorry. I hope I didn't break your dreams.
You did that a long time ago.
I'm sorry, I'm terrible. I'm a bad guy.
I think Minala, I mean, we kind of touched on that over the weekend as well, but he does deserve to be looked at at Alonso, and a lot can happen there, and a lot of tactical tinkering and an opportunity for some of these young guys to show what they've got. I just don't think it should be relied upon in any way.
No, even though Inzaghi knows very well Minala because he coached him when he was in the Primavera. There have been a lot of rumors of Andreas Pereira, the Manchester United player, linked to Lazio. What's your thought about this option?
Not too much, to be honest. Simply because he's not really a guy I know an awful lot about. So I mean, it's at least he's young, which is something. Obviously, has been highly rated to end up at a club like Man United, and I think he's been in the Brazil team, or Brazil youth teams at least as well. But yeah, I mean, he's not a guy I know an awful lot about or have seen play too often. So it is a bit different, I suppose. We were talking before about the fact that he's Lazio have gone for Serie A based players predominantly. So I suppose in that regard it would be a bit more of a gamble. But who's to say? I mean, it could be another Tare masterstroke.
Well, it makes sense. It would be a sort of Luis Alberto deal. You're getting a player who hasn't got that much time, didn't play, hasn't got that many chances at Manchester United, so he would be interested in playing somewhere else. The problem is he's more a attacker winger, so in the 3-5-2 would be more pushing than defending. I don't know if that's the right option for Lazio. Could be playing a little bit forward, like in a 4-3-3, if Inzaghi switched to that tactic. But, I would like to see those type of deals Lazio making, an uprising star that comes to Lazio instead of, I don't know, an old player or someone who... Yeah, Anani,
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. That's for sure. I mean, but I suppose, I think that would be the other concern. There's a good point that if he's a winger, it entirely depends on what Inzaghi's planning on doing. But I mean, it was pretty clear that Nani never really fitted in as a number 10 in that role, and as a natural winger when he was first signed, I had big concerns about that. And I suppose if we are looking to bring in guys who are naturally used to playing in a 4-3-3 or out on the wing, that they're at least going to be adaptable or disciplined enough to be able to adjust to Inzaghi's system. That's going to be a really important thing, I suppose, is their willingness and their work ethic. So when it comes to a guy like Pereira, I honestly couldn't say. I don't know enough about the guy to be able to judge that, but that would be definitely something you'd want to look at.
Yeah. Again, it's going to be important, also, to see if Simone Inzaghi is trying to change something. As we said, I thought the 3-5-2 was a little bit too static. Lazio need to vary, to change team and solution depending on the option you have available and on the team you're playing against. So we said it. We praised a lot the season before Inzaghi for changing often tactics, and I thought that was the right solution that Lazio should have tried even this season. So maybe Andreas Pereira or Inzaghi is looking for those type of players who can give different solution to Inzaghi. I think honestly Lazio already has those type of players like Lulic, for example. But maybe having them directly at Auronzo will give the right time to Inzaghi to look for different solution.
Yeah, hopefully. I think that's something we would all like to see next season. Really, is him going back to being a bit more adaptable tactically than he was last season. So yeah, I think, and the ability to shift between formations is a real strength in your armory. And we've already got, you mentioned Lulic there, but there's a number of flexible, versatile players in this squad. So I think the squad is quite well suited to doing that. So I think Inzaghi is right to be cautious, because it does take time and discipline in order to be able to shift between those different shapes. So yeah, I think the sooner you can get the squad together and work with them, the better.
Yes, and again, it would be good to see this youngster giving a go this summer. So that would be useful too. And there are other decisions to make. There's Murgia, there's Lombardi, there's Cataldi. I think they can prove this summer if they are worthy to stay with Lazio or maybe go on loan somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, really, is that there's still, we spoke about right at the start, Marchetti and Djordjevic going out, but there is still a lot to sort out in this squad in terms of who's going to be here and who isn't. So it is as important, really, as who's coming in as making decisions on some of these fringe players and where their futures are and getting them out, because it could be disruptive to have guys in the squad training with them who know they don't have a future if you don't want them there. So yeah, but there's just so much work for Terry to do, really.
Yes, there's a lot of work. I don't know. It looks like Lotito, Tare, and Inzaghi had a meeting before the amazing event di Padre in Figlio that was held Monday at the Stadio Olimpico. I hope they talked about what Lazio need in this summer to improve, and I hope they're going to do it as soon as possible, because there's not much time, so they have to hurry, and they have to make a decision on Lazio youngster. There are a lot of Lazio players that have been playing around Italy, and not all of them have convinced, so it's not going to be easy. But there's always the example of Strakosha. I'm sorry, I'll always come back to that, but he hardly played at Salernitana, and then he came back to Lazio, become a starter, and show that he has great talent. So, I'm willing to see other Lazio youngsters perform with Lazio and show that they are good enough to play for Lazio.
Yeah, everyone deserves a chance. So yeah, hopefully they will be given a chance, and because it does get to a stage where it's quite hard to know what to do with these young players if loan moves haven't worked out, but they're not ready for the first team yet. But you still feel there's some potential there. It's not an easy situation to be in, because I suppose you don't want to set any of them free with the prospect of that decision coming back to bite you later on. So we'll see. I'm sure they'll all get a look in, at least the ones Inzaghi thinks deserve it. They'll all get a look in over the summer, and hopefully we can see more Strakosha style success stories.
Yeah, talking about Strakosha, I'm really curious about Guido Guerrieri, and here it's not only thinking about Lazio, but thinking about the player. When he was young, when he was in Primavera, he was considered the best goalkeeper of his age. So honestly, I think keeping Guerrieri at Lazio wouldn't be the perfect solution for him. He needs to play. So especially if Lazio finds a team, maybe in Serie A, that give him a chance to start, that would be amazing. I think that should be one of the priority for Tare. Give him a loan 1 year and see what happens, and then next year maybe you have a very good goalkeeper back. So and as he has a long contract with Lazio, I think, till 2012, 2022, I think. So he still have time, and he's still linked with Lazio. So I think that's something that Lotito and Tare should be thinking more.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think at that age, it's important for him to get as much game time as he can, really, because it's a big step up from Serie B to Serie A. It's a big step up from youth football to Serie A football as well. So I think he does deserve to be given a chance somewhere else, because there's not much use for him really staying where he is at this point, when it's quite clear after the season we've just had that he's not gonna be getting many games. So yeah, but I mean, you can already see that really from the fact that Lazio are being linked with all sorts of other goalkeepers to come in as number twos. So it's yet another position that's needing sorted.
Yeah, I agree. And again, we've been talking. There are so many youngsters Lazio play. I don't know what happened with Perea. I don't know if they're going to give him a chance to play somewhere else. Tuncará, Minala, we already talked about. So there's plenty of things to do for Lotito and Tare. I wish they would have been more active than they're now. But who knows? Maybe they're right now making deals for players, and we're gonna be able to talk about it in the coming episode. So we'll see. I think we can wrap it up here, Alasdair. If you don't have maybe transfer market stats.
No, maybe once we actually make a transfer, I'll be able to rustle something up, but not tonight, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, let's hope that we're going to talk about a new Lazio player very soon. Remember that you can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, and if you like the show, you can become a Patreon on patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts from $2. Alasdair, thank you very much. I know you have a busy weekend. We're going to talk then next week, I presume.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Hopefully we have something concrete to discuss at that stage. See you then.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Alasdair, and we're going to talk next week. Bye.
Oh, there's an angel watching us so